Thank you, Tim. I'm just basically here to summarize the huge amount of work that was done over the last 2 years by the Greenhouse Gas Working Group, and to just reiterate the recommendations that the group is making to the Executive Board, and also the recommendations that we'd be making to the Principles and Criteria Review Task Force. So we'll start off with the use of recommendations, the measuring and reporting of greenhouse gas emissions, reducing emissions in existing operations, minimizing emissions from new operations, smallholders and small producers, land use change in oil palm, monitoring progress and wider dissemination of outputs. So the important thing is the recommendation should not be retrospective before January 2012. Where the recommendations require changes to the principles and criteria, they should be used to inform the work of the Principles and Criteria Review Task Force. Where the recommendations do not require changes to the principles and criteria, their implementation should be considered and overseen by the Executive Board. So the Greenhouse Gas Working Group encourages companies to start using the Palm greenhouse gas tool, which was presented earlier by Lawrence, immediately as a voluntary action to monitor greenhouse gas emissions, as required by the existing criteria 5.6 in the P&C. The P&C should continue to require monitoring and also require reporting of information on greenhouse gas emissions resulting from palm oil production, and via consensus, field-tested and peer-reviewed, and equivalent could also be used to provide a common framework. The greenhouse gas tool should be further developed to provide a mechanism to also deliver information for different reporting requirements, for example, for internal management, for the EU RED, for the US biofuels RFS2, for example. The group also encourages all RSPO members to begin using all BMPs, best practice guidance, management of peat, and the best practice for reducing emissions immediately as a voluntary action. The P&C should also continue to require the development and implementation of a plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions identified in existing operations. The plan should also include reported time-bound targets for implementing the measures in the plan. Plantations on peat should also be managed at least to the standards set out in the guidance on best management practices on peat. The P&C should also require new operations to be designed to decrease greenhouse gas emissions, and to achieve this, for plantations, total carbon emissions from expansion should not result in a carbon debt greater than that which can be paid back in a period of one rotation over the whole management unit. I don't think there was complete consensus over this, but the group agreed to also look at the Indonesian RSPO as a suggestion. It was also suggested that proposed guidance on this can be reached, which include expansion of plantation should be on low carbon stock land and on land which is in current intensive agricultural or plantation use. To achieve this as well, they should also incorporate low emission management, for example, best management of palm oil mill effluent treatment and efficient boilers, as was also illustrated by the example given by Joshua Lim just now. For smallholders, consideration should also be given to allowing more flexibility in the timing for smallholders and small companies to implement changes recognizing their more limited resources and capacities. The RSPO would also use the findings of the land use change studies as given by our scientific panel once they have been completed and peer-reviewed as its official position on oil palm and land use change. All RSPO members, as part of their annual reporting, should also be required to report on progress in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and these should be implemented by revising the annual reporting format. Remember, these are not a requirement, set targets. It's basically about reducing emissions, and having a baseline given by the greenhouse gas tool will help you do that. Thank you.